to possess the magic to mobilize domestic resources to finance their campaign promises. They dismiss borrowing as a lazy man's approach to economic management and promise a different paradigm. Contrary to this claim, our public debt has ballooned from 154 billion to 154 billion, excluding the energy bond of 4.7 billion, as at May 2018, from the 122 billion in January 2017. Can I take that again? Contrary to this claim, our public debt has ballooned to 154 billion cedis, excluding the energy bond of 4.7 billion, as at May 2018, from what they inherited, 122 billion, as at January 2017. The public debt is expected to increase further by 3.8 billion should the financing plan that I talked about, 3.8 billion financing plan of selling state assets, monetizing mineral royalties, get telcos to pay upfront, amounting to 3.8 billion. Should that fail to go up, should that fail to materialize, then the public debt is going to go up by 3.8 billion. In addition to this, the government has issued a bond of 2.2 billion to Ghana Commercial Bank, GCB, in respect of the assumption of the collapse of the UT Bank and Capital Bank. This has added to the public debt and will be borne by the poor taxpayer. Furthermore, the government has earmarked another 2.3 billion cedis as a possible cost to the taxpayer should Unibank collapse. This means that the financial sector related costs for 2018 will also increase the public debt by 4.5 billion cedis. The two put together, 2.2 billion and 2.3 billion. We were the first to bring this to the attention of Ghanaians. This issuance of public debt to defray private debt was not done in a transparent manner, as the policy was not presented to Parliament and the public for debate before agreement was reached in GCB, the IMF, and other stakeholders. The debt service commitment will be met from taxes imposed on Ghanaians as a precautionary against similar occurrence in future. We, the minority, will urge the government to adopt the Non-Performing Asset Recovery Trust, what we call the NAPAT approach. On page 170 of the 2018 budget, the following plan for mobilizing resources were outlined by the government. And the government said that they are going to borrow for the domestic market for the purposes of financing the deficit in the budget, an amount of 8.2 billion. Again, they are going to draw down on project loans of about 2.9 billion. Issuance of sovereign bond, which they were successful, they are going to draw down an amount of 4.7 billion. Now, what we are saying is that if you are to add everything together, the borrowings plus a possible failure to monetize the mineral royalties and others is going to add up to about 24.7 billion. Based on what I've said earlier, we in the minority project that in the year 2018 alone, the government will be adding about 25 billion to the public debt stock. 25 billion to the public debt stock. This will add to the borrowing for 2017 of about 26 billion. The public debt therefore can be projected as end of 2017 as at end of 2018 to be 173 billion cedis. 173 billion cedis. Indeed, this will take us above the 70% threshold. 70% threshold of a debt-distressed country. Now I'll take you to GNPC. The Ghana National Petroleum Company intends to borrow an amount of $564.81 million to fund its operations, including $100 million for the construction of agricultural roads, $20 million for the construction of its corporate head office in Accra, $10 million for the construction of an operational office in Takoradi, $13.4 million to refurbish its petroleum house, $2 million to build a transit quarters for staff visiting Takoradi, and among others, all in US dollars. And this was presented to the Parliament of the Republic of Ghana. We are concerned about GNPC's borrowing outside of its core mandate, which constitutes yet another instance of flouting of the petroleum laws, notably provisions related to the annual budget funding amount under the Petroleum Revenue Management Act. We want to remind GNPC that Section 15 of the Petroleum Exploration and Production Act, Act 919, 2016, stipulates that any borrowing exceeding cedi equivalent of $30 million for the purposes of exploration, development, and production shall be approved by Parliament and shall be in consonance with the Petroleum Revenue Management Act, Act 815, 2011. GNPC has not presented anything before Parliament for Parliament to give them an approval to undertake this borrowing exercise. Yet we are aware that they have gone very far in securing this loan. We know their chairman recently bought buses for his party, and we are interested in this matter. We are interested in this matter. In concluding on debt, we urge the government to stop beating its chest on tapering public debt around 70% of GDP. They should have done more, given the potential for growth and revenue that it has inherited from President Mohammed's administration. So indeed, I'm surprised that the government is thinking that they've done so well that we should clap for them. There's no clap in this matter. They should have done better than what they have done. I'll take you to expenditure. The question I've always asked myself is that, do we have a revenue or an expenditure program as a country? Do we have a revenue or an expenditure program as a country? The focus so far has been on revenue mobilization and public debt. At a time, a number of factors have actually given revenues a relatively boost, including recovery in crude oil prices below $40 per barrel in 2015 and 2016, and now to about $70 per barrel currently. Additional crude oil and gas flows from TEN and Sankofa fields at a relatively higher prices noted above, which led to an increase of about 82% in oil and gas revenue for 2017 alone. Record flow from non-conventional sources such as the Temporary Energy Sector Levies Act from the NPPs that the NPP appears to be making virtually permanent with the issuance of a 10-year bond. Revenue flows from the retention of all the temporary taxes that they promised to introduce. Now they have retained all of them, and we should be aware that revenue is still flowing. Increase in GRA nominal tax revenue, as well as the MDAs or MMDAs non-tax revenues. Central government capping policy that has appropriated revenue of about $3.7 billion from the district assemblies, traditional authorities, MMDAs, and other statutory funds such as Road Fund, GET Fund, National Health Insurance Fund, and even the district assembly common fund, instead of aligning it to the as the NDC had envisaged. Record domestic and external borrowing in just 18 months to support the budget, something the government promised never to do. We do not overlook the need for GRA to raise more taxes or tax revenues through improved performance and in line with the Ghana's middle income status. However, since increase in tax revenue always lag behind recoveries in economies, care is needed not to put pressure on households and businesses to meet unrealistic promises made to the electorate that in the case of increasing expenditures. Now we want to sound a warning to the government. We are saying beware, fiscal pressures are mounting. the fiscal pressures are mounting on the state, and the government should be aware. The evidence seems to suggest that the fiscal credibility is being compromised. Regarding government expenditure, the background is clear. The large fiscal slippages are being created by the government. Inability to raise additional revenues to meet unrealistic promises that are increasing expenditure. The projected deficit of target of 4.5% of GDP would be missed due to a huge deviation in revenue and expenditure and the financial sector related cost of about 4.5 billion. Aside the fact that the government is accumulating arrests and sweeping them under the carpet, I'm sure the contractors here are very worried. Arrests are mounting. Government doesn't want to talk about it. And arrests are supposed to be paid, and they are not paying it. And it's important that we also stress that the government has already decided to cut an amount of 850 million on already certain sectors of the economy. So we expect again that the government will cut additional expenditures of 850 million. So the rest can only continue to be mounted. As noted, the government decision to cap transfers to statutory funds is gradually collapsing all statutory funds. The capping law was introduced purposely to free some revenue for government to undertake opulent expenditure, but this has rather proven woefully inadequate due to the huge fiscal burden emanating from the introduction of their new expenditures as a result of their campaign promises. Despite being capped, the District Assembly Common Fund is going to be burdened with an additional cost since the National Builders Corps has been aligned to the District Assembly Common Fund. The program, which has been estimated to cost 0.2% of GDP, will be funded through the allocation of the District Assembly Common Fund. And ladies and gentlemen, it's a shame that the District Assembly Common Fund will now suffocate to death due to the Capping and Realignment Act. The Ghana Exim Bank has noted that it is to use its revenues to support the One District, One Factory initiative. While we have noted that the case of GNPC already, since this will be appropriating SOE's revenues to support budget purposes, we urge the government to make a full disclosure of the pressures being put on the state institutions to appropriate funds for political goals. The government within the medium term is also cutting back on payment to construction companies. We have already drawn attention to the financial engineering that appears to enable the government do an offset rather than to settle their liabilities. These companies are collapsing due to non-payment of government-owned amount owed to them by government, resulting in an upsurge of non-performing loans. We project that the minister will again cut capital expenditure during the Midyear review. In fact, this is in the IMF statement that they are going to cut it by 850 million. Ladies and gentlemen, I'll conclude. And in conclusion, a clear fact that emerges from the discussion so far is that the current crisis confronting the managers of the economy, compelling them to impose a raft of heavy taxes on already burdened populace, is self-imposed. The Akufo-Addo government should be wary of burdening Ghanaians in its desperation to save face. The fiscal problem is the direct result of shallow opportunism and populism. It is obvious that the promise made by the NPP in 2016 and their initial action, as contained in the 2017 budget, were intended only to get them elected and convey an impression of fidelity to these promises. The reality, however, is that it has led to a major problem for the economy, which have translated into severe hardship for the generality of our people. Inflation has begun rising again and is now in double digits, following a fleeting stay at single digit in the last 2 months or so. The Ghana cedi continues its catastrophic nosedive and is showing no sign of improvement despite a lofty talk from the government and the central bank. It is currently trading around 4 cedi 85 to the dollar and appears that almost set to reach about 5 cedi to the dollar. If the trend is not kept immediately, this will happen before the end of the year. This has in turn led to a steep rise in prices of goods and services, leading to more hardship for the people. Fuel prices have increased astronomically, as have the transport fares as well. Key campaign promises like one district, one factory, one village, one dam, among others, remain unfulfilled, with contradictory pronouncements from various government officials as the status of this project. This is now the order of the day, very contradicting each other. Somebody says 10, others say 6, somebody says 0. Contrary to the promise not to borrow, the Akufo-Addo government is borrowing at breakneck speed in an alarming proportion. Almost 2 years in office, they have borrowed nearly half of what the NDC borrowed in 8 years. More worrying, they have virtually no serious capital investment to show for this level of borrowing, except a reckless dissipation of borrowed funds on consumption that sadden present and future generations with debt they will struggle to pay in future. This has come at a time when a major crisis is inflicting the health sector, where patients is critically needed of healthcare are being turned away or are treated in dehumanizing condition owing to severe congestions. This is made all the more problematic by the fact that apart from its inability to make any investment in the expansion of healthcare, the Akufo-Addo government has inexplicably decided to allow huge investment made by President John Dramani Mahamad's administration in healthcare infrastructure to rot away by refusing to either operationalize them or complete them. Ladies and gentlemen, instead of a clear program to address these concerns, the government has rather chosen to compound the suffering of Ghanaians by introducing more taxes after making a song and dance out of the removal of the supposed nuisance taxes. These taxes will no doubt hit Ghanaians' households and businesses very hard and further erode their already dwindling disposable income. All of this is happening at a time of great waste and profit legacy by the government. Only last week, the Auditor General report in the activities of the MDAs revealed that nearly $1 billion Ghana cedis had already been squandered or wasted at the Ministry of Finance. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm sure everybody saw the pack where the Ministry of Finance is leading it with almost 632 million Ghana cedis as a result of infractions, failure to collect withholding taxes, and others. The conduct of the Akufo-Addo government clearly underscores the need to be wary of boastful politicians who tout capacity that they do not possess, promise heaven and deliver hell, and above all, prepare to use the most disingenuous falsehood and roses to capture political power. In them, we are seeing a government that clearly lied to the people and claimed it was going to be able to raise revenue to meet every expenditure without borrowing and affecting traditional expenditures. The dire situation should compel the Akufo-Addo government to apologize to Ghanaians for their deception and follow the advice of national leaders to organize a national forum to find solutions to problems caused by their mismanagement of the economy, leading to misalignment of the budget that has saddled all of us and is going to saddle all of us with more debt going into the future. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much for the opportunity.
So, colleague members of Parliament.